Sudan is located in northeastern Africa and features diverse landscapes, from the Sahara Desert in the north to fertile lands and swamps in the south, with a Red Sea coastline to the east. In its capital, Khartoum, the White Nile and Blue Nile come together, forming the Nile River, which flows north into Egypt. Sudan is predominantly Arabic-speaking and Islamic, but is also home to Christians and followers of traditional African religions, though the tensions between them are high. Despite its natural beauty and cultural richness, Sudan's history is marred by terrorism, military revolts, severe poverty, and genocide. Political rule by religious extremists, as well as constant resource scarcity, have significantly influenced the country's ongoing instability, and innocent Sudanese citizens are running out of options for survival. Meet Idris. Growing up in Khartoum, he was always an independent and inquisitive child who enjoyed talking to adults and asking questions. But that life is behind him now, and it feels like no one has the answers he's looking for. A few months ago, violence broke out in the streets of Khartoum, forcing Idris, his family, and many others to flee. After a 500-mile, 2-day journey, they arrived in Port Sudan. Parts of the city felt familiar, like the tall buildings and businesses, but other parts were very new. Idris saw massive cargo ships for the first time and enjoyed splashing in the Red Sea's salty waters. However, adjusting to Port Sudan has been difficult. In Khartoum, Idris and his family had food and a modest home. Now they live in a makeshift tent by the harbor, struggling daily with scorching heat and limited clean water among fellow refugees. Due to prolonged political unrest and violence, thousands of people have sought refuge in Port Sudan. This inflow quickly overwhelmed the city's resources, leading to shortages and surging prices. The growing scarcity of necessities like food and water is, in fact, an ongoing crisis throughout the country. About 17.3 million Sudanese, including half of the schools, lack clean water access. This leads to severe health issues, particularly among children. On cooler evenings, Idris stands at the harbor and looks out, feeling thirsty and helpless at the sight of so much undrinkable seawater. He watches other refugees board ships to escape Sudan for good in search of a better life elsewhere. Seeing other children leave, Idris struggles with envy and longing for the safety and resources they might find. But his parents remain hopeful for a brighter future at home, so they stay. As ships vanish into the horizon, Idris can't help but feel trapped. His family had already fled Khartoum. He wishes they'd consider leaving Sudan entirely. Idris misses his old life in the capital. Although he grew up amid Khartoum's political and religious unrest, his uncle was always there to explain what was happening. Uncle Yusuf was a former National Assembly member and staunch advocate for democracy. He criticized Sudan's government for prioritizing religious conflicts over public welfare and was hopeful when protests led to the president's removal. He and Idris discussed the exciting potential of a representative government, like the new leadership was promising. But the promise was never fulfilled due to power struggles and military interference. As the Sudanese military clashed with a paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces, Khartoum turned into a war zone with relentless violence, despite international peace appeals. Somehow, Uncle Yusuf always remained hopeful for Sudan, and even chose to stay amidst the turmoil rather than flee the capital with Idris and his family. Now, in Port Sudan, Idris desperately misses his uncle's guidance. He starts attending meetings held by local sheiks who discuss pressing issues. Listening to the council provides Idris with valuable insights into the complex challenges facing his new city, but he begins to feel inspired as he witnesses the proactive leadership. Amidst this, he learns of the thrilling news that Uncle Yusuf is soon arriving in Port Sudan. Reuniting with Uncle Yusuf, Idris learns he came to Port Sudan not as a refugee, but to seek solutions for resource scarcity. Idris is invited to tag along as his uncle meets with his old friend Shmuel, a representative from Israel. They discuss Sudan's water crisis, which is bigger than Idris realized. He learns that 80% of his country's labor force, primarily in agriculture, is crippled due to limited access to clean water, which results in dangerous food shortages. Shmuel suggests that technology, like desalination, is a possible solution, just as it was for his own country. Israel grappled with water scarcity too, until it turned to reverse osmosis desalination in the late 1990s. By pushing salt water through membranes, they filtered out impurities, creating clean water. By 2002, Israel had 5 major desalination plants, supplying 85% of their drinking water, and they were excited to share their technology with the world. Idris can't imagine drinking water from the Red Sea with its high salt concentration, but Shmuel shares that desalination can transform salty seawater into drinkable water within 90 minutes. By adopting Israel's large-scale desalination methods along Sudan's Red Sea coastline, the country could potentially solve its water and food scarcity issues. Idris is excited by desalination's potential for Sudan, so he brings Uncle Yusuf and Shmuel to a council meeting. The sheiks are captivated by the idea and engage in an intense discussion. Despite such a promising proposal, they ultimately recognize that the nation lacks the stability and funds to build such plants right away. Idris is disappointed, but not ready to give up. He knows that Uncle Yusuf and Shmuel will be leaving the next day, so he asks if there are any other possible solutions to Port Sudan's immediate needs. Uncle Yusuf is proud that Idris is showing initiative rather than looking for an escape. Shmuel suggests reaching out to a non-governmental organization for aid. Many such organizations left during the recent violence, but Shmuel knows of one that still has a representative in Port Sudan. He writes down the address, but it's up to Idris to secure a meeting. In the morning, Idris walks across the city to the address and finds the small office of a faith-based charity. He learns that the charity provides aid all across Sudan in the form of livestock, medicine, and even hand pump wells. He tells the representative about his plan to someday use desalination technology along the Red Sea. Then he presents the immediate need for clean water for his family and the other refugees by the harbor. The representative is impressed by Idris's understanding of the issues and is optimistic they can find a solution. As they say a prayer together, Idris is amazed and hopeful. Faith had always been a source of conflict in his country, but now it was the source of someone's desire to help. After a few weeks, Idris receives some exciting news. The faith-based charity had secured the resources they were waiting for. Now, every morning, a truck delivers water for all the camp residents, and there are plans to install tanks to hold even more water. Recognizing his efforts, the sheiks have invited Idris to speak up more in their regular meetings. Sometimes at night, he still watches the ships leave the harbor, but Idris no longer feels envy. He is content in Port Sudan, committed to finding solutions for his community and perhaps, in time, for Sudan.